Yeah, whenever you guys are ready.
Yes. 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. Perfect.
Oh,
We turned it off from yesterday.
yeah, I turned it off, yeah. Let's make sure that mute.
Okay, you heard that noise? Or receiving too much signal. Yes. Yep.
Good evening. It's good to see familiar faces, and those of you who have been here for each one of the presentations know that, again, tonight we're in for another treat. I think, like me, you've probably found the information to be current, helpful, and also encouraging, even if sometimes it feels a little bit overwhelming, all the different things that we're hearing about. But tonight, we are going to be hearing about our thoughts and how they can affect our health and our life. And I was thinking about that, and I thought, this is so important because the way God influences us many times is through our mind, right? Certainly we have people, we've got the Bible, but many, many times God is speaking to us through our minds, and that's why it's so important to have a healthy and a clear mind. Just a reminder that each presentation that Dr. Ramirez has shared with us is going to be available on our website through this week. So take advantage of that. After that time, it's going to be taken down. And again, just want to invite you to, we're going to bow our heads. I'll let you know that at the conclusion of tonight's presentation, Dr. Ramirez is going to be accepting questions. And I'm sure he'll answer questions about any of the things that he's talked about for us. So think about things you might want to ask him through the evening here. Let's bow our heads together. Father, again, we are thankful for your presence here with us, and we are certainly thankful for the way that you are using Dr. Ramirez to shed light on the way that we can have more complete lives. Many of us, our families or ourselves, have dealt with the problems that he's talked about. And so, Lord, we are again appreciative of the natural remedies that you have provided. So be with us tonight, be with Dr. Ramirez as again he shares this information. And as the result of all of this, may our health improve so that our connection with you will be even better. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Dr. Ramirez.
Well, good evening, everybody. A few studies that we've been doing lately. This one about control of weight. This is a hot topic, you know. There's many things on the internet that they tell you this is the best way of losing weight. The problem with many of those interventions is that it involves suffering. And how long can you suffer? You can be restrictive, you know, a little plate of food, you know, for the next 2 weeks. But after that, you're going to say, you know what, forget it, I'm not following this. And you end up actually worse than how you started. Here, in this study that we published, we're showing one of the best ways of losing weight without suffering is eating a whole food, plant-based diet. If you eat that type of diet, you feel satisfied and you feel that you're not suffering, you're eating enough. And let me show you the interesting thing about this. If you are obese or if you are overweight, you will lose weight on that diet. But if you're normal weight, you won't lose weight. If you're underweight, you won't lose weight. That's the beauty of it. It means you're going to start shedding those extra pounds until you come down to your normal level, and then you will stabilize there. This one, it came out in the Journal of Sexual Medicine, how sexual relationships outside of the context of marriage actually are not the best thing for your mental health. And showing how changing the behavior actually has an effect on your mental health. And this other one, very interesting also, how going against your conscience is not good for you. This has a negative effect regarding anxiety and depression. That's why the light that you have, where you know it's right and wrong, continue following that. Just a reminder, you know, many of you got this book. Well, reminder that next weekend it's going to be free. So feel free to tell others what they need to do. They need to go to the Amazon website and then choose the Kindle version. It will say that is free. Sometimes this causes confusion on people because Amazon also is trying to run its own promotion that if you subscribe to this thing called Kindle Unlimited for a trial is free. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that the book is going to be $0. So you go to the normal checkout in the weekend, next weekend, and then it will come to $0. You need to go to the checkout, but it will be $0. And once you acquire the book, it's yours for life. You know, so you can read it going to read.amazon.com if you want to read it on your PC, your computer, or download the Kindle app on your tablet or your cell phone, and then in that way you can read it in that format. And also a reminder, we talked about this on Saturday, but I just want to remind you that this next Saturday we're going to have this program at BMA. So if you are interested in coming, it's free. I'm going to be one of the speakers together with somebody from the Lifestyle Center in California that is going to be teaching some coaching, and also Dr. Adrian Brutus. Also, he's flying from Ohio to be in the conference. So it starts on Friday, it goes on Saturday, and then Sunday. If you cannot go the whole time, feel free to just go, you know, the afternoon or something to take advantage of that. I'm going to be sharing a few research that I've been doing. You can find it there on that ResearchGate page. So let's talk about the neuroplastic effect of your thoughts, or in other words, heal your life by healing your mind. See, neuroplasticity is a concept in which we are learning that the brain is in constant change. And the behaviors that we have create neuroplastic pathways so that when we repeat them, it becomes easier to do them. Now, that's fantastic for the good habits because it means those good habits that I repeat, then they create pathways in my brain and it's easier to repeat them. It becomes second nature. Sadly, bad habits can also create neural pathways. And that's why sometimes the struggle, to break certain bad habits, because they become second nature in us. But it's like a piece of grass. If this is all grass and I start walking back and forth here, what's going to happen? It's going to create a pathway. But the good news is, if I stop walking there, what's happening there? That grass is going to grow and then the pathway will disappear. This is such a fascinating topic. It is the subject of a book that we think will be ready by next year. So keep in touch and you will know when the book is out. So we were talking about how when we deal with depression, if we deal with the root causes of the problem, the depression reverses. And we talked about how our hypothesis that we published on this paper shows that by identifying the root causes of the depression and working on reversing them, that will have a positive effect on the mental health aspect of things. Now, there is something that our patients improve because we do something that is called cognitive behavioral therapy. Sounds complicated, but it's very simple. What's cognitive? Your thinking, your thoughts. Cognitive, behavioral. In other words, how by working with your thoughts, we can have an influence on the behavior. And what is therapy? Treatment. So a treatment to change the behavior by changing the thoughts. So by changing the pattern of the thoughts, you can create neuroplasticity in the brain. See, there are certain thoughts that we enjoy thinking, yes or no? And those thoughts that we constantly like to think about, they actually create those neuroplastic pathways. But it's possible to change them. Unfortunately, sometimes we create wrong thinking patterns. And it becomes second nature. We naturally think in those wrong thinking patterns. I'm glad you're here tonight because tonight we're going to talk about those wrong thinking patterns and what we can do about. Now, something that is important in success is a concept of something called emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is your ability to get along with others. See, I recently was talking to somebody very interesting. He only went to 3rd grade of primary school. That's all the education he had. Yet, he became the manager for an important corporation in the whole northwest area of Mexico. How can somebody with a 3rd degree education
is able to accomplish such feat? The answer lies in emotional intelligence. When you interacted with him, you very soon realize that he had a high emotional intelligence. So your success actually is more dependent on your EQ, your emotional intelligence, than your mental intelligence. See, your mental intelligence will probably land you your first job. But how much you're going to climb in your job will depend on your emotional intelligence, because that's what's going to be the predictor of success. Now, these are the 5 components or the 5 things that emotional intelligence measures. We have, number 1, knowing your emotions. If you yourself are not able to know your emotions, you don't know how to behave in certain situations. It may not be the right timing for you to say or not say something. You can, start creating problems and so forth. 2, managing your emotions. You need to be in control of your emotions instead of your emotions being in control with you. Because your emotions are like waves. They come and go. You need your reasoning power to be able to control those emotions. 3, recognizing emotions on others. Again, there's certain time that you may want to talk to somebody, but it's not the right time if they are not ready. And instead of having a productive conversation, you're going to escalate things instead if it's not the right timing. Then next one, managing your relationships. That's why EQ is very related to your ability to have leadership skills. A leader needs to be able to deal with all different types of personalities and characters and so forth. So if you invest in your emotional intelligence, your relationships are actually going to get better. And finally, a very important factor in emotional intelligence, and that is your motivation. You can have all the talent in the world, but unless you have the motivation to go for those goals, you're going to be stuck in life. And that's why there are things that we need to be very careful, such as marijuana. There was an interesting article on Los Angeles Times that said, if you want to be a loser your whole life, start smoking marijuana. Why did they say that? Because marijuana destroys your motivation. Everything is cool and calm and so forth, and you don't go forward. And this can actually have a negative effect at the level of your mind. So emotional intelligence helps you have a better quality of life. It helps you when you act to create unity instead of saying polarizing things that create division and problems. And it does all those things without sacrificing truth. In fact, Jesus was an example of this. He could be in all kinds of settings, yet he didn't create, tension and things. Instead, everywhere he went, it had a soothing influence. So, what has an influence on your emotional intelligence? If you could bring me some water. There are many things that have an influence on emotional intelligence. One of them is your genes. if your parents were highly emotional intelligence people, you are going to have that advantage as a child because of the genetic and also because you see how they acted, so you end up acting like them. Also, what happened during your childhood? Was it a very restrictive type of childhood? Was it a childhood that you had opportunity, to have adventures and challenges and so forth? Also, what is your emotional support? Are you feeling nurtured and secure in your relationships? Also, your physical conditions. Let me ask you this. When is more likely you're going to end up in an argument with somebody? The day you slept very well or the day that you didn't sleep very good? The day you're hungry or the day that you are well fed? When are you more likely to enter into a discussion? And that's why the concept of temperance is such an important concept. You need to be temperate in your life because those things have an effect on our emotions. But emotional intelligence is something that can be improved. This is my study. And in this study, we were showing how when people in a community setting are given seminars for 8 weeks, in which some of the emphasis are these principles of emotional intelligence, the emotional intelligence of the whole group starts to improve in a matter of 8 weeks. Now, it doesn't necessarily take 8 weeks. In this other study that I did, I'm showing that in 10 days, your emotional intelligence can increase. By dealing with the principles of emotional intelligence and practicing those principles in a matter of days, they can improve. And also, there are certain things that can have a positive or a negative effect. For example, this one, we were showing here that opioids, due to the fact that they create frontal lobes suppression, they actually lower the emotional intelligence of people. That's the bad news. The good news is that by stopping or decreasing their usage, your emotional intelligence starts going up again. And also, certain key nutrients have an effect on emotional intelligence. In this study, we were showing how folate, folate is such an important nutrient, not only for your mental health, but also for your emotional intelligence. And we're showing here, the more folate the people eat, the higher their emotional intelligence. And one of the challenges today is the fact that folate, it was given the name because it's abundant in foliage. And that's the last thing people eat today, isn't it? They don't eat those green, leafy type of vegetables that are loaded with good nutrients. Make sure you eat your foliage. In that way, you will increase your intake of folate. So, your feelings are the results to the messages that you're giving yourselves. And your thoughts have much more to do with how you feel than what is actually happening in your life. You know an example of this? If you are a student of the Bible, Paul was judged in an unjust way, and then he was punished, and then he was put on a stinking prison. And then, they put some, metal things in his hands and in his legs. And, it was stinky, the prison. There was other prisoners cursing there. And what did he do? He was crying like a baby. Why these things happen to me? Is that what happened in the story? No, he was actually singing happy songs. How can somebody that is going through such physical abuse is able to respond so differently? Emotional intelligence. And he was able to change those feelings into something positive. One of the modern students of the concept of emotional intelligence is somebody by the name of Dr. Beck. And Dr. Beck, he started analyzing, what do people that are depressed tend to think about? And what he described is that there are streams or rivers of negative thoughts that come out spontaneously out of the minds of those people that are depressed. And he started classifying those thoughts into 3 groups: negative thoughts about themselves, negative thoughts about the world, and negative thoughts about the future. And this is very interesting. You go and talk to somebody that is struggling with depression, and this tends to be the response. Now, that's the bad news. The good news, what Dr. Beck was showing us, is that you can change the pattern of those thoughts. And that's what he started focusing a lot his work on. Trying to help those people identify those negative patterns of thought and helping them change those negative thoughts into something more positive and more realistical. And one of the things that is used in cognitive behavioral therapy is that you want to teach the person to focus on things that are truth. See, when our thinking is not truth, that's what causes all kinds of stress and anxiety. We need to learn to check our thoughts. What I am thinking, is it realistical? Is it true? Or is something that I think is going to happen? See, that's different. It hasn't happened, okay? Because if I start thinking in that catastrophic form, then that creates a lot of stress and problems. And as I mentioned to you, it has been very well published how by changing the pattern of the thoughts, we can literally change the brain. In fact, studies show that when you have somebody depressed, if we just treat the depression with medication without cognitive behavioral therapy, it's very likely that person is going to relapse into that depression. But if the person is able to take responsibility for their thoughts, then things start to change dramatically. So, cognitive behavioral therapy has all kinds of benefits, and there are multiple studies that show that is as effective as drug medication. Now, some people feel unfulfilled. And when you ask them, why do you feel so unfulfilled? They start blaming to things such as, well, it's because I'm not smart enough. It's because I'm not successful enough. It's because I'm not physically attractive enough. Or I don't have enough talent to be somebody happy and fulfilled. Now, the truth of the matter is that this is not what makes you feel sad or happy. Or they start playing the blame game. Oh, you know, I am like this because of my partner, because of my father, because of my brother, because of my boss, instead of taking responsibility. Because the problem with this is that we end up with victim mentality, and that's not good. When I have victim mentality, I think that there's nothing I can do to get out of the situation that I am in. But if you learn cognitive behavioral therapy, you are going to learn that you can take responsibility for your own thinking. And as you start changing those basic beliefs and values, you will see that your mood will start to change. So, how is it that our minds work? Our minds work in the following way. We have something that is called the activating events. Activating events are things that are constantly happening around us. You know, you're driving and you get a flat tire. You're ready to go out and you slip and then you stain the clothes that you had just ironed. You're cooking, your phone rings, you get distracted and you burn your food. You get to your job and your boss just rebukes you and it's not even your fault. All the time we are being bombarded by activating events. Now here's the important thing. The activating event directly does not give you an emotional consequence. How do I know that? Well, you can put 10 people, you can put them to see exactly the same thing. How come they react so differently? For some, it's a big deal. For some, they don't even care. For other ones, they are happy. Without getting into politics or anything, just an example, if I say Donald Trump, man, some people get upset. Some people get happy, yes or no? Some don't even care, yes or no? Why the reaction so different? See, the activating event does not necessarily directly give you an emotional consequence. So, what's the thing in the middle that gives us that? Belief. Your belief, your basic values are what's gonna give you the emotional consequence. Example, I could say that nobody should dial my phone after 10 p.m. That's my belief. Question, what happens if the phone rings after 10 p.m.? Oh, it's going to be joy and happiness in my heart, isn't it? No, because the belief is not right. The emotional intelligence is not going to be right. The problem was not the phone, can you see there? The problem was the wrong belief. It led me to the wrong emotional consequence. Now, let us deal now with the wrong thinking patterns. So we have 10 wrong thinking patterns. We're going to go through each one of them in a quick way. First one, it's called the all or nothing thinking. In this way of thinking, the person tends to put everything as black or white. And unfortunately, life is not black and white. There's many shades there in the middle. So this happens to create a lot of frustration and so forth, because that's not how life works. Everything is or bad or good. And not everything is like that. There's some things that are like that, but not everything is like that. So people like this tend to be very discouraged and so forth, because life does not work like that. An example of this is a student that I heard in Korea. She was a very perfectionistic student, that type of student that A+, 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 A+. One day, she missed, that there was an important exam, and she didn't study, and she didn't even fail the study, but she just had a bad grade. She went and committed suicide. See, that's all or nothing thinking. Believing that everything needs to be perfect. If not, I'm no good. Okay? And that is not the way that life is. Not everything is all or nothing. Second wrong thinking pattern, or cognitive distortion, also known as that, overgeneralization, in which you tend to create a pattern based on too few examples. I've seen this, the other day, I was talking to somebody, and they were saying, I had just met one Adventist, and that Adventist did something very bad to me. All the Adventists are very bad. Wait a minute. You're coming to that conclusion with just one person. It doesn't work like that, You're taking too few examples to really create a pattern. And it's interesting that very intelligent people tend to have this cognitive distortion more commonly. Because, intelligent people try to find patterns. In fact, if you ever taken an IQ test, that's the way that they are. They put these lines like this, and then these lines like that, and then they put a third block there. Tell me what's the next pattern, You need to create, you need to decipher the next pattern and so forth. So watch out for overgeneralization. Make sure you have enough evidence to come to a conclusion. Next one. Mental filter. Mental filter is like having glasses that are dirty. So your ability to see reality is distorted, because you are not seeing the whole reality due to that filter that you have in front of you. When that filter is there, you are going to have problems seeing the whole reality. So what are you supposed to do? Well, intentionally, forcefully look for evidence that supports a different way of thinking. In fact, challenge your own thinking and ask somebody, how do you see the issue? Do you see the issue the way I see it? And listen to the other person, evaluate honestly, and try to find the best conclusion so that you can see if you are having some sort of mental filter. Will Rogers says, it's not what we don't know that hurts us so much, it's what we know for sure that just ain't so. And it's true. See, many times here we are, creating all kinds of problems of things that are not even a problem. Next one, disqualifying the positive. In disqualifying the positive, the problem is that we're not seeing the whole picture. We just happen to focus on the negative aspects of it, and we don't see the positive. Very negative people tend to be like that. They just like to see the criticism, the fault finding, the negative part of it, and they don't see the whole picture. I was actually talking to somebody like that last week, and I challenged her. I told her, look, we've been talking for a while. You have not said a single positive thing. Everything is negative. Everything is bad. Everything is criticism and so forth. You need to force yourself to start seeing the positive things in life. An example of this is a girl that just finished accounting, and she went and started working in a new company, in a company that had been there for a while. And as a new employee, she's trying to do her best, and in fact, she's working so hard that they even give her, the award of the Employee of the Month. Unfortunately, the economy is getting bad, and they have to cut workers. Well, it's easier to cut a newer employee than somebody that has been trained, for a long time in the system. So she ended up losing her job. And here she is, all discouraged in her home, and a friend of hers goes and visits her and says, hey, why don't you go and apply for another job? I seen in the newspaper that they're looking for accountants in many companies. And she says, see, I'm no good. They let me go. I am not a good worker. That means that I'm no good. See, here she is disqualifying the positive and just focusing on the negative aspect of things. So try to see the whole picture. Think you can, think you can't. Either way, you will be right. Or Thomas Fuller, he does not believe who does not live according to his belief. Next one, mind reading. Mind reading, the person thinks that they know what the other person is thinking. You think that somebody can know that? Only God Almighty can know, what are you thinking? And the interesting thing is that we tend to use the mind reading cognitive distortion. We tend to use it more on people we don't even know. Here you are, you're going to take, the Amtrak. And as you, go into to try to find a seat, there's a lot of people, and there happen to be a person, and then next to it there's an empty seat. But as you get closer, you say, that's a very bad person. I'm not gonna sit next to him. And you continue trying to find another seat. How do you know it's a bad person? Has he ever done something bad to you? How do you came to that conclusion? See, that is mind reading, thinking that you know how the other person thinks before you actually consulted them. Now, question: who does more mind reading, males or females? Research shows that both do it at the same rate. Okay. Now, even somebody that you know very, very well, you've been married, for 40, 50 years, the probability that you will know what that person is thinking is 3 out of 5. Okay? So not even somebody that you know very, very well, you still are going to miss sometimes. And then there is a subtype of mind reader called jumping to conclusions. I heard an exercise physiologist that says that that's the only exercise that Americans tend to do on a regular basis. In which you end up, taking decisions instead of gathering all the facts. You hastily take a decision and you don't see the whole thing. A conclusion is what you come to when you're tired of thinking about something. Next one, fortune teller error. In this cognitive distortion, you think that you know the future before the future comes. Do you know that? Again, only God Almighty knows that. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I wish, so I could go and buy some stocks, But I don't know. So this is one of the big causes of anxiety. Okay? Here is the person, losing their sleep and stress and, semi-functioning because they think that next month something horrible is going to happen, How do you know that? We haven't gotten there, Why so much stress? What was the counsel of Jesus? He was saying, don't stress about tomorrow. Focus today. The issues you need to deal and so forth. Focus on that. Tomorrow will come and then we'll have time to deal with those stresses of tomorrow. So close the doors of the tomorrow. Close the doors of yesterday and focus at living 100% the day that you have right now. So people that say something along the lines, I know he won't do it because he thinks it's going to be too hard. I see this issue among certain physicians. There are certain physicians that, have gone to congresses or read certain articles that, for example, know that a plant-based diet can help, reverse many diseases. But they say, oh no, I'm not going to tell them. It's going to be too hard for them to do it. How do you know? You haven't even tried, You at least need to give the option to the person and let them decide if they want to do it or not. Look at this one. I will never be able to overcome this problem. How do you know that? You tried it, multiple times, Do you know what's going to happen tomorrow? Things change and so forth. You cannot make this type of statement. Next one, magnification and minimization. In this cognitive distortion, you either blow up something that was not that big of a deal, or you are ignoring something that you should face and deal, and you just, sweep it under the rug. The press does fantastic at this, isn't it? Certain things that are a small thing, man, they make such a big deal about it, and people end up getting angry and so forth. And at the same time, there's important issues that they should be, dealing with, and they just sweep it around the rug as if it didn't happen, So watch out for that magnification and minimization. Don't make a big deal of things that shouldn't have a big deal. Next one, emotional reasoning. Emotional reasoning is when you are trying to reason with your emotions. And you let your emotions decide instead of your rational thinking. For example, I don't feel like changing any time right now, so I'm not going to do it. That's a good excuse. No, it's not a good excuse. See, you're using your feelings to take the decision instead of being rational. In fact, laziness also is based on emotional reasoning. Man, I don't feel like going to work today, so I'll just call sick, Who is guiding that decision, It is the emotions. It is not your reasoning. Next one, labeling and mislabeling. In this one, you start putting labels on yourself or others, and then you try to prove them. For example, people that repeat themselves, "Oh, I'm a dumb person." Have you heard of those people? That's the wrong label to put yourself, because you repeat it so many times, you end up believing it. Yes or no? That is not a good label to put yourself. And the same story in putting labels on other people. For example, racism is a mislabeling cognitive distortion. You are putting a certain label on a certain ethnic group, and then you try to prove it, That is exactly the root of this. It is a cognitive distortion. And then the last one is called personalization, in which you start taking responsibility of something that is not even your fault. For example, some time ago, I had a patient that wanted to quit smoking. And he really didn't want to do it, but he wanted to do it. So I took the time, to really explain to him how we're going to overcome smoking. And these are the steps that he needed to do to overcome that smoking problem. And then I tell him, look, I want to see you in 2 weeks. We'll see how you're doing. So come and see me. Well, 2 weeks come, and he shows up again. And the first question I ask, did you quit smoking? Oh, I didn't even try. See, I started saying to myself, man, what a bad doctor I am. I cannot help somebody quit smoking. Now, is it really my fault? No. See, the person needed to take responsibility. The person needed to choose in the right way. Now, the interesting thing that I find is that even though Beck and also another researcher, Ellis, both of them are the fathers of the modern cognitive behavioral therapy in the modern world, it's interesting that the Bible talks about cognitive behavioral therapy. And this is one of those Bible verses that you should write on a little card and memorize it so that you can check the way that you are thinking against this guideline. It doesn't matter if you're not even a believer. It's the same principles that you need to use. Look at this. Whatever things are what? True. Whatever things are honest. Whatever things are just. And it continues there with multiple characteristics. If there's a virtue in them, if there's be any praise, what do? You think on those things. So, whenever you have, questions in your head, man, should I be thinking about this? Go and check it against this guideline. See, you have the ability to change the channel, yes or no? You can change your thinking. So, check to see if those thoughts are not true, if those thoughts are not fair, if there's no virtue in those thoughts, eliminate them, take them out, and change the way that you are thinking. So, CBT is not something that is old. So, I wanted to show you a few examples of how we can use these principles of cognitive behavioral therapy. One of them is we need to help the person in a preventive way to start applying before we encounter those distortions or those problems. We want to prepare ourselves and others to face them. See, now, for example, you have an advantage. Now you know the most common cognitive distortions. And throughout the week, when one of those wrong thinking patterns appear, you can catch yourself and say, hey, wait a minute, what am I thinking? This is not the way that I should be thinking. This is X or Y cognitive distortion. I shouldn't be thinking those thoughts, because those thoughts only make me more stressed. So one of the things that we need to do, we need to practice. This is the way that we are going to learn to deal with these problems. So let's see a practical example. For example, activating event. My boss said my nose is too big. Well, the consequence, I feel mad and angry. I might slap him. I might tell him off and demand an apology. So, what was the problem with the basic beliefs and values? He has no right to talk to me that way. He should not have insulted me. He's a fool. I cannot stand saying that. And you see why this type of belief system tends to escalate things very much. So what should we do? Well, we add a D that we call it the dispute, in which we take a little time out and try to catch ourselves and understand what is going on. Wait a minute. I am making myself mad. He doesn't control my anger. I control my anger. I am annoyed, but I don't have to get angry. See, if you get angry, then even your rational thinking starts going down the toilet, and you end up gonna say something or act in a foolish way that is gonna make the problem bigger than what it should. I prefer that he shouldn't talk to me that way, but I am responsible for my own anger. Can you see how, using the dispute, we start to diffuse this bomb? Instead of making it blow up, and I'm going to even get fired from saying things to my boss, than diffusing things. Here's another one. Oh, the phone is ringing again. I haven't answered it all day. I haven't talked on the phone today, and I am not going to start today. I am too upset and tired to talk to anyone anyway. Why is life so difficult? I'm starting to feel nauseated. Just for a simple telephone that is ringing. Belief system. The phone should not be ringing. It's always a problem when someone calls. It might be something I cannot stand to handle, something horrible. You see how the wrong belief system ends up creating the negative emotional consequence. So, dispute. How can we deal with something like this? What law says that the phone must not ring? To say it is always a problem when the phone rings is overgeneralizing and exaggerating. I can stand talking on the phone, and I can handle even unpleasant situations. I am not going to demand that my life be stress-free. So as you can see, it is possible to deal with our emotions. Notice what it says here. A great leader of America said this: truth will ultimately prevail where there is pains taken to bring it to light. A lot of wisdom there by a great person, George Washington. Valley Forge, by the way, my favorite place to go for a workout. Anytime I'm in Philadelphia, I get my tennis shoes and go for a nice run there in that terrain. And also, notice what one of the wisest persons said in the book of Proverbs, for as he thinketh in his heart, what? So is he. Our thinking affects our behavior. This is the basis of cognitive behavioral therapy, yes or no? Our way of thinking will have an effect on my behavior. So, emotional intelligence can be improved. As it says in the words of Jesus, you shall know the truth, and what? And the truth will set you free. So, liberate yourselves from the shackles of wrong thinking and false focus. Focus yourself on the truth, and then the truth will make you free. May God bless you. May you experience this freedom so that your life can be a freer life and happier life as you improve that emotional intelligence and experience, this type of liberation of your thinking. Thank you very much. And we'll be catching a few questions. So now will be the time if you have any questions. Yes.
The first night you talked about a light box.
That's right.
Is there a brand that's...
Well, a good manufacturer, there's many types. A good manufacturers happen to be Philips. So just go to Amazon and put their light box and Philips, and they have multiple models. One concern with those light box is that if the light box is too big, it could potentially have negative effects on your retina. So they have made some new models. Philips also has made some new models that are like little glasses, and you look like sci-fi when you put those things. So you put it around your eyes, and it's a little square that sends the blue light instead of the older types which were big. So, I mean, if you're going to be using it just for a few days, it's not that big of a deal. But there are some people that really struggle with depression, especially in the winter months. They need to be using that on a daily basis. If that's the case, I would, invest in one of those new glasses type of blue light. Philips makes some models of those, so you can go ahead and check them out on Amazon. I don't sell them or anything, you can find them and apply them. Okay.
Another part to that question, still dealing with the light box.
Mm-hmm.
I work night work,
Okay.
and I've been working that for 13 years. In using the light box, is it okay to come home after working, overnight, expose, a little time period to the light box and then go to sleep?
No, that's a wrong thing to do. What you need to do if you are working at nights, first thing is to ask for them to switch it to the morning. But I won't switch it to the morning. What you do, you need to put some glasses, and you need to drive home and straight you go to bed. You do not expose yourself to bright light, because if you expose yourself to bright light, the quality of your sleep is going to be very poor. So one mistake that people that work at night commit, well, two of them are, number one, they don't sleep enough. They think, that, I need to go to the bank and I need to pay this and whatever. Forget it. You need your 8 hours of sleep. So I would even suggest, you get some aluminum paper and you put it on your windows to have it completely dark, okay? When I was in Norway, it was like that. Up there, the sun would come up around 8:30 in the morning, and it would set around 3:30 p.m. in the winter. But in the summer, it was the opposite. Sun would come up around 5 in the morning, but even before that, it was very bright. And it would set up like 10 p.m., but it would be very bright until midnight or 1 a.m. I said, forget it. I put aluminum paper on my windows, because it was too bright. I couldn't sleep. So that's number one mistake. They don't sleep enough. Number two mistake, you need to watch the timing of your meals. One mistake that night workers do, they come home and they eat, a huge meal, and then they go to bed. I mean, is that what you do before you go to bed, usually every night? No, isn't it? That's what you should be doing every night. So your stomach needs to be empty, so your quality of your sleep must be better. So time your meals so that you eat, that meal many hours before the time you get off. So yeah, watch out with that. And if you want to use the bright light, you would use it more by the time that you wake up. That will be the time to use the bright light.
Following up with that, is that setting my circadian rhythm to be nocturnal?
That's right. And you should try to stick to that. Switching the time zones, boom, 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 boom. Some days this, some days that. It's not the best thing for your health, So yeah, just watch out. That's fine.
And it's the same pattern, it's not irregular.
That's fine.
So when I come to my weekend, I like to be daytime.
That's right. Well, see, that's the challenge, That is exactly the challenge that I'm talking about, So you get, your rhythms start to get adjusted by the time of the fourth night that you're doing that, and then they need to go back to the other one. So that constant shifting, back and forth, it has many implications. We didn't have time to talk about that this weekend, but there's some fascinating information on something that are called the body clocks. We have clocks in our bodies, and when those clocks are not synchronized correctly, they cause all kinds of trouble in your body. You increase your risk for many diseases if you are not, respecting those clocks. So yes, that's exactly the challenge, of the night worker, So yeah, that's something that, you need to really think about and pray about it, and try to make the best decisions out of the situation that you're at. Yes, go ahead.
I have a quick question on folate.
Okay.
I would like to boost my children's folate. Is it okay to give them supplements?
That's right.
Yes, which ones?
Well, this is the funny thing, if you are pregnant, what does the doctor gonna give you immediately? Folate. or folic acid. Folate and folic acid is the same thing. Why is that? Because many people don't take enough folate in their food. So what we need to do, we need to consciously increase the level of folate. And then the sad thing about it is that by the time the physician is going to prescribe you that folate and tell you go and take folate, the nervous system of the baby already is quite formed. And you needed that folate before that took place. So that's why, especially females that are in a reproductive age, they need to make sure that they have enough folate all the time. So that in case of a pregnancy, the folate is available there. Now, what can you do? Do you need to give supplements? The answer is no. There are many foods that are very rich in folate that you can take, such as oranges. They're very rich in folate. Such as okra, very rich in folate. Green leafy vegetables, they are nice and rich in folate. So you can do, those steam it or raw with some lemon and so forth. Try to have variety and try to teach your children, to enjoy these types of foods. So if you every day are providing that folate, they should have plenty. Folate is actually not that hard to get from plant foods. The problem is the people that avoid the plant foods. If you, for example, want to take enough folate only with meat, you're going to have to eat like a lion. You have to eat a whole bucket full of meat to get enough RDA of folate. So if you are eating those, folate-rich foods, you're going to have plenty there, and that will be enough for the needs of the body. Also, another group of people that we get worried about folate are alcoholics. Alcoholics, they tend to, number one, throw a lot of that folate, and second, because of their alcohol habit, many times they just don't eat enough. They're living mostly on the alcohol. So anytime you are like in the ER and you have somebody that has a problem with alcohol, the first thing you give them is folate. Because this can be really serious, especially on an alcoholic. You can actually cause some permanent brain damage if those folate levels go too down. Okay? So yeah, watch out for that, and yeah, teach them to enjoy, those folate-rich foods.
How reliable are food cravings in telling you what you need?
That's right. Not necessarily very good. Some are good, some are not. So watch out, I wouldn't rely 100% on them, So what you do, you check that craving against principle, Say, is this actually something good for me, Some people crave sugar, That doesn't mean they need to go to the ice cream shop, and get themselves some sundae, That's not a good craving, But sometimes I have certain cravings due to certain nutritional needs that I may really have, okay? So sometimes, those cravings are justified. So you can ask Providence, you can ask God, Lord, is this really, something that I need to be eating and so forth. So yeah.
I can eat a balanced meal and an hour later if I crave nuts and dried fruit.
That's right.
And it seems to satisfy my craving, just a small amount, dried cherries and a handful of cashews or something, and then I'm satisfied until 4 or 5 hours.
The next one. Well, if that's the case, then tend to eat that after you finish, as your dessert, and then in that way, you don't need to be, eating between meals disturbs those clocks that I was talking about. So you have certain time to eat, and then you shouldn't eat for 5 to 6 hours, because if not, you start interfering with those body clocks. So we need to learn to work with those clocks instead of working against them, because there's some negative consequence of going against those clocks. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think it was yesterday when we were talking about the healthy gut.
That's right.
That makes the brain.
That's right. That's right. So what you need to do, you need to focus at eating enough fiber. Those are the best probiotics. Some people think that they need to be taking, the yogurt and the kombucha and so forth. That's not what the research is showing. What the research shows is that by eating those high fiber foods, such as the legumes, When you eat those high fiber foods like the legumes, by the way, are those beans and lentils and garbanzos and peas and so forth. When you eat those foods, your body is not able to absorb 100% of those foods, and a lot of that fiber end up reaching your colon, and there are multiple bacteria that are dependent on those foods. So if you feed them with that type of foods every day, you need to be eating 2 or 3 cups of beans or legumes a day. Okay? Now, hummus counts as a legume, by the way. Okay? Now, if you eat 1 cup of beans and you get all gassy and so forth, that means you are in trouble. It means your gut, your bacteria in your system is not used to eating enough fiber. And this type of people are going to be at risk of developing, diverticula and all kinds of problems in the colon. So you need to teach your bacteria to handle this. So you start with 1/4 cup of legumes a day. And then you start increasing that every week or every 2 weeks. See, if you're not eating enough fiber, you will start encouraging the growth of the negative type of bacteria in your system, and that's the last thing you want. There are links to increased risk of cancer and all kinds of problems by having the wrong type of bacteria. So by eating the right type of foods, those high fiber foods, we're feeding the good bacteria, and then those bacteria multiply. And there's some fascinating research. Let me show you this. See, those bacteria that we have in our gut, they actually send signals to our brain, and they affect our mood. In fact, some fascinating research was showing that, for example, if you are a heavy meat eater, and then you say, man, from now on, I'm going to be a vegetarian. As you stop the meat, the bacteria that was promoted by eating meat will start sending signals. And that signal is picked up by your 10 cranial nerve, and that's actually going to make you feel bad. So then the person says, what happened is that this food is not the food that I need to be eating. I need to be eating my meat. And it's those bacteria giving you a hard time. You need to stick with the decision. You need to keep forward. And then those bad bacteria will start to decrease or disappear. And then the good bacteria will colonize and things will work much better. And you will actually have better mood as you change the bacteria, and then the signals change that go from the gut to your brain.
Just one more question related to this. I know that doing gluten is very healthy, but how can you help a person who just cravings?
That's right. Well, there's many reasons why people have reflux. Among the most common happens to be eating between meals, okay? When you eat between meals, you can cause that. Another very common reason of GERD, or gastroesophageal reflux, happens to be the use of caffeine. Caffeine will actually open up the little doors that we have in the upper part of our stomach called the sphincters, and you relax those sphincters by taking any form of caffeine, and then the acid starts coming up. Another thing happens to be eating too late in the evening. So you go to bed, and then by the force of the things you have in the stomach, that acid starts coming up and also starts causing some burning. Also, something that can help is to do a little short walk after each meal. In that way, you stimulate a little bit there the movement of the food from the stomach to your small intestine. And if things are not improving after making those lifestyle changes, you need to study that a little bit more. You know, you may need something like an endoscopy and so forth. Try to see, you know, if there is a hernia, you know, there's a physical part there that needs to be corrected, because this can be serious. If you keep on burning that esophagus on a regular basis, you're going to end up with something that is called Barrett's esophagus, which is not cancer, but it's not normal. It's something in the middle. And you keep burning that, that's going to jump and become a cancer. So that's why this can be serious. Now, if it's a Barrett and you stop burning, it's possible for that tissue to reverse to normal tissue. So yeah, just watch out with that and make sure that you have it under control. Okay.
Any recommendations for hypoglycemia?
Hypoglycemia. That's right. Yeah, there's a few things there. One of them, make sure you're eating high quality food, high fiber type of food. Legumes happen to be an excellent food that have, you know, that low glycemic index that help you feel satisfied for long periods of time. Another factor happens to be people that confuse the thirst signal for the hunger signal. And when that hits them, they think, oh, I'm hungry. When in reality, they are thirsty. And if they were to drink water, it goes away. So make sure you're able to differentiate that is true, you know, hypoglycemia. Another thing happens to be with your change of habits. For example, if you're used to eating 3 meals a day, and then you suddenly change it to 2 meals a day, at the time you used to eat the other meal, you're going to feel a little hungry and so forth, because the pancreas is pumping out some insulin because it was used to eating a meal at that time, and that's going to create a little hypoglycemia. It takes a few days to be able to overcome this, so that your body gets used to, you know, no meal is going to come at this time, and then the pancreas starts calming down and not pumping that insulin there before that meal that used to happen. And then a third thing, when you are switching to a 2 meals a day, make sure you are eating enough. So you need to think about what used to come, you know, in 3 meals, now it's going to come into 2. Therefore, you need to eat more food in quantity as you will need, you know, those calories in order to hold on, you know, for the next one. And it will be wise also to try to have a measurement with a glucometer to see if it's truly a hypoglycemia, or if it's something that I'm confusing for a hypoglycemia. Okay. Very good.
Could you just comment on fasting early on?
That's right. Yeah, fasting is good. We sometimes prescribe that. For example, our New Start guests that come to the New Start program, they're put on fasting for 2 days at the beginning of the program. And fasting can have many benefits. I happen to be more of the long-term daily faster believer. By switching to the 2 meals a day, you're actually having, you know, those benefits of the fasting every single day. But if you want to, fast and so forth once a month or twice a month or something like that, that's completely okay. It's fine. The system actually regenerates very nicely. Something interesting that many people don't realize, but the Jewish people would never fast on Saturday. In fact, when it was changed, the day of rest from Saturday to Sunday, one of the things that they used was forced fastings on Saturday. To the point that people say, you know what, I don't like this day. A day of suffering, And that's how I started convincing them to go and rest on Sunday instead of resting on Saturday. It's a very interesting story. I have actually happened to have a lot of Jewish blood on myself. So yeah, fasting has many benefits. I don't like the long-term fastings, those types that are lasting, 4 days, 5 days, a week, 2 weeks. That type of fasting, you need a competent physician to be following up the process, because your electrolytes start getting out of whack and there's a lot of problems. Your body starts using your muscles as food. And that part I don't like, Let's use the fat. But when we start actually destroying our own muscle to continue surviving, I have my questions. So that's why I prefer, the whole food plant-based diet. And if you do that in 2 meals a day, then you have, that benefit of the fasting in the long term. One. How much sugar? Zero. I mean, you can use a little bit. But the problem is that we need to re-educate our palate. Many times our palates have been, educated in the wrong way. So we end up, craving the wrong types of foods, and that creates problems, So if you are more, of a sugar type of eater and so forth, try to get at least something that is more, fiber rich, a little bit of dry fruit and so forth. Don't take too much, that's concentrated food, and that's actually going to encourage, gain weight and so forth, But in your oatmeal, your oatmeal shouldn't just be, no flavor or anything, Add some raisins or some cranberries or some blueberries and so forth. That gives them, a better taste. So it's not that anything that tastes good is bad for you. Some people have that bad idea. Healthy food needs to taste good. Okay, that's an important principle. This is not about suffering. You need to enjoy the process as you make the change and so forth. But watch out. The problem is that today many things have this high fructose corn syrup, and that's a problem all the way from Washington. The American government subsidizes corn. That's why you see corn all over America. Okay? And that creates all kinds of problems, because they produce so much corn. What are they going to do with so much corn? They make it into sugar, a sugar that they put on everything, because it's a cheap filler. You can put that stuff there in your product and it didn't cost that much. Even your batteries have corn syrup, Even to that they add it. So the thing is so cheap that they put it on your soft drinks and on your cereals and on everything. And that stuff is not very good for you. So instead of that, try to enjoy the other, sweet things such as fruit. Fruit is always welcome, and the nice variety and so forth. Okay. So last question of the night.
Follow-up with this. I mean, we touched on a lot of stuff, and you gave us a lot of good pointers, and a lot of things are pointing to the fact that there are programs, there are
That's right. That's right. Yes, you can get some coaching, online. Both Wildwood and Weimar, they are testing an online approach. Personally, I prefer if they were to go there, because if you are there, you're completely there, you have the whole, infrastructure ready to help you. But if you can handle it, online, you can try it out, So it's called New Start Online. I think that's the name of what they call it, the program. So try it out, check out, go to the website. I think you're going to find that information on the website, newstart.com. Go to that website and you should be able to find about that online New Start program. Very good.
One other thing, I found that Dr. Ramirez had mentioned the website PCRM.
Yeah.
And they have an app for a 21-day jump start if you want to change your diet to go to a plant-based diet. And they will lay out for you, the types of foods to buy. I mean, the whole menu, everything is there to get you started. So
And it's all free.
Yeah, another.
Org.
Yeah.
Just put PCRM 21 days vegetarian. If you put that on Google, you will get to that guide. It's available in Spanish and in English, by the way.
Yeah, and they have, it's an app that you can get to put on your phone. So you don't have to be tied to the computer. Anyway, Dr. Ramirez, we are very thankful. We appreciate all the help that you've given us, and now it's a matter of us helping to motivate each other.
That's right.
To be healthier. This is just a little thank you from our church family.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. Maybe a round of applause for his contributions. We'll just close our evening with prayer. Heavenly Father, we have learned many things, and we know that now we have the more difficult job of making the application in each of our lives or the lives of our friends and family. So we pray for, again, your strength. We've learned tonight how to think in a better way, and so may we use those gifts that you have given us in a way that's productive. And we pray now, again, your blessing on Dr. Ramirez and on each person here as we continue in our walk with you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.